There is a difference between having muscle and looking like you have muscle. So, if you are somebody who's been putting in the work, especially a woman over 40, and you're like, I understand that I need muscle, I'm putting in the work to build the muscle, I'm stronger than I've ever been. Why doesn't it look like it? It's important to recognize that there's a difference between having muscle and looking like you having muscle. And just because you're really strong doesn't mean you're going to automatically be like super sculpted and defined. So that's what I want to talk about today is kind of like what's the difference. And if you're somebody who has been putting in the work to build all of this muscle, you probably want to see it. Maybe not, but if you're somebody who does want to see it, and you've already checked out my video before this, I did a full series on how to look like you lift, where we talked about if you want to look like you lift, if you want to see muscle, the first thing that you have to do is be open to building it. But a lot of you guys said, like, hey, I've already been doing that. I've been progressive overloading. I've been lifting. I've been eating to fuel my muscle. Like, I've been doing all the things. And I know that I have a lot of muscle under here, but where is it? I don't see it. I'm going to give you three reasons why you might not be seeing your muscle. But first, I want to just kind of define like what I mean when we're talking about muscle visibility. So when I'm referring to visible muscle, a lot of images might come to mind for you. And I want you to know that whatever image comes to mind for you is what I'm talking about. So muscle visibility is going to vary wildly and it's going to vary on the person. The tips that I'm going to give you, the three reasons, they'll apply to everyone. So whether you are talking about just, I want to see the smallest definitive outline of muscle, or I just want to like kind of sort of have a little bit of like that like tightness where I know that there's muscle under there, or I want to have like be completely shredded stage level lean, then, all applies. So, first and foremost, when we are talking about muscle visibility, regardless on where on the spectrum you want to be, where it's just like a little bit harder than I am now, that I can see the muscle, or super shredded, the first thing that is going to come into play is how much body fat percent you have. So if you have been putting in the work, doing muscle building phases, maybe you're doing like full scale like bulks, or you've been doing a metabolism reset, you're lifting with progressive overload, you're eating enough to fuel muscle building, maybe even eating in a slight surplus in order to pack on the muscle. If you want to see the muscle and you know for sure that you have the muscle, then your next step is going into a cut phase, going into a body fat reduction phase. Because the reason that you're not seeing the muscle, except for maybe like sneak peeks of it when you're in the gym, maybe you like can see it when your muscle's like super fully pumped. You can see a little outline that's like shaping your fat, so to speak. If you want to see it on a more regular basis, that is a body fat percentage issue. So the lower that your body fat percentage is, the more of your muscle that you will see. That is given the fact, like we said before, that you've actually built it. If you've put in the work to build the muscle and you don't see it, you want to start tackling that body fat percentage while keeping all the protocols that we usually talk about holding on to as much muscle as possible while you're losing the fat. So if you have tons of muscle and it's hidden under layers of fat, you're not going to see it. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to wonder, why in the world is this not working for me, when all it is a body fat percentage issue. And for most women, it's lower than you think. So that's going to be the first milestone that you'll need to move past. Again, this doesn't mean that you need to chase a crazy low number. It's just you might have to get okay with the number being lower than you think, because the only way that you would just start building muscle and see it right away is if you were someone who started out with a very low body fat percentage. So if you started out with a really low body fat percent and you move into muscle building territory, then you're probably going to start seeing your muscles a lot sooner than someone who started off at a higher body fat percentage. And either one is okay. It's just about understanding where you are on the spectrum and where you have to go in order to see what you want to see. So the second reason why you may not be seeing your muscle definition, especially if you have muscles, so if you have muscles and you have a low body fat percentage, You may be experiencing lots of inflammation. So, if you're dealing with chronic inflammation or water retention of some sort, that will blur the lines of your muscle definition. So, especially if, like we talked about with that spectrum, if you're on that very like beginning of the spectrum where you're just trying to get it like just enough, I just want to see it sometimes. I want to see it enough. I want to kind of like look in the mirror and know that it's there unflexed. Understand that the second that you're dealing with some water retention in that area or some inflammation in that area from either overtraining or under recovering or whatever the case may be, it's going to blur those lines. So again, this is where the lower your body fat percentage is, maybe the lines aren't blurred as much. You have a little bit more leeway before it just completely blurs out and just looks 100% soft again. The higher you are on that end, then the second that you have some water retention, it kind of looks like it did maybe before you lost the body fat percentage. So it's important to understand that both of those will play into it, and different things like having stress of any sort, especially like chronic amounts of stress, overtraining, under recovering, those are going to play a role. When you understand that, then you start to recognize that those things can happen to anyone. So that's why it's really important to understand, which is reason number three, and that is the perception versus the reality. When you don't understand that anyone can have a soft day or a soft level of, the year, a soft stage, when you recognize that, then you give yourself more leeway. When you don't recognize that and you're constantly comparing yourself in your like unflexed, water retentive, inflamed state or high body percentage state, you're comparing that to someone else and their lowest body fat percentage, flexed picture where they're, had the proper amounts of like rest and recovery. They're not dealing with the stress. Like when you're comparing that or you're thinking of their frozen moment in time as how they always are, then you're also going to not give yourself the capacity to get to where you need to go. You're going to constantly stop yourself because you're comparing yourself at this stage to them at this stage, when in reality, understand that they're going through all of the different stages as well. So it's really important to know that no matter how ripped you are, the most like muscular person that you can conjure up in your head can still be subject to the same thing. So that means the person, the celebrity that gets like super ripped for a role and then they go back to eating normal, or they put on a normal amount of body fat percentage, their muscles are going to look a little bit softer because they have more body fat percentage over it. The second that they go on that cruise or they go on vacation and they start like being in a more water retentive state, their lines are blurred a little bit more on their muscle definition. So when you start to recognize that everyone goes through the ebbs and flows, it's just that why not take pictures of it if you've had the opportunity to get there? That's what they're doing. And I talked more about this in my video about like why you'll never look like her. And I will post that the link to that because it's really important to understand those pieces to the puzzle so that along the path you understand that what you're going through is normal. You're not just like the special snowflake that nothing's working for, while those people get to like have it all. You can have it as well. And again, the more that you are taking care of those three areas, the lower that your body fat percentage is, the less you're in a like water retentive state, especially like I said, more of like an inflamed state, the more often that you will see your own muscles. The more that you are in those states and the higher that you choose to keep your body fat percentage, which again varies person to person, then the less times of the year that you will see it. So it's really just about figuring out what that balance is for you, for getting to the perfect balance of being able to see your muscles when you want to, and then like not caring during the times where it's not as important, maybe when it's colder months or something like that, and giving yourself the grace to kind of go back and forth while also understanding like what is the thought process that I have to go through at each level. If I want to see my muscles all the time, am I prepared to eat and train like the person who sees their muscles all the time? While again, recognizing perception versus reality, no one sees their muscles all the time. They just see them a lot more often than other times. So if that is useful to you and you haven't already checked out my Look Like You Lift series over on YouTube, highly recommend heading over there and checking that out for the understanding all of the other reasons why you might not be looking like you lift. And in my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how low your body fat percentage needs to be in order for you to start seeing your muscle. So we'll go a little bit deeper into that. But in the meanwhile, definitely check out that free series or check out the full Look Like You Lift course if that's something that you want to go even deeper on. I'll link to everything in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.